Yes, I am back, y'all. It's True Powers Mine, and this is TPIM. That's our live. Another glorious day, and another glorious opportunity to bring forth truth and awaken the fire in you. All right? Today's date, May 15th, 2019, the year of our Lord. A lot of things are going on in the world today. Everything from Alabama here, the Bamas. Hold on. Man, this. Right there. Alabama Senate passed nearly total ban on abortion. Now, last night I kind of ended the show with that, or I think on this, actually. I was extremely tired, but I am refocused, re energized today, and ready to do it. We got to look at, hold on, I want to show you another story. Now, this story is actually coming from the UK, all right? Kicked out, spat on, and abused. New UK shelter helps LGTB or LGBT, lettuce, greens, bacon, tomato, homeless. All right. This is one of the chicks. I guess she's what you would call a lesbian. All right. But then there's a 52-year-old feller. This guy. Once again, look at the eyes. I don't know if y'all can see it on this one. But oh boy, is so dead looking in the eyes, man. All right. And look what he has to say. I mean, I don't know if he was engaging in this activity in his normal engagings. I don't know. But he's sitting up here talking about people peed on him, people spat on him, people stole from him while he was homeless. He faced abuse for his sexuality. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he's acting out of character, spreading disease potentially. Not anyone can spread disease. Let's not go there per se. But this is what I'm talking about, the reason why the hub is needed. Because these people are going to take up the vast majority of the, let's say, public funds. And they're not going to be very melanated looking folks. And you're going to be sitting there talking about this and that, and they ain't going to hear you. They ain't going to care. Unless you're getting down like they're getting down. I want to share, and this will be the final installment of the um, Earn Raw or whatever. This will be the last of it. Hold on, I just woke up and I feel great. Oh, I forgot. Just a quick reminder. Hold on, let me jump over here. Just a super fast reminder about 5 o'clock today, Central Standard Time. Let me go over here to my channel, community. Right here, y'all. Judge Joe and Dr. Randy Short will be on the show. You know, I will, I want to really kind of do the first half or whatnot. Just be a conversation with Judge and Doctor. And then the second half, I'll open up the phone lines so that you guys can call in. That's how I want to work this, okay? So, just a reminder.
I'm creating my Wix site. You think you already have a stunning website? That's cool.
Yeah, I think I have a stunning, non-existing website. Okay, let's start this. He's talking about the Ten Commandments and the applicability of it in our modern society.
The story of the commandments that we read in Exodus, or we find in Exodus, and therein, God is depicted as a volcano. And if you understand that at the
almost sounds like Scientology, don't it?
onset, the book makes a lot more sense. Right-wing religious ideologues like to cite the statutes attributed to this volcano god as commanded his chosen people to do again and again, even after he gave them these commandments.
He's talking about murder here.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. And I bet for most of you, most of the people you know are Christians. And out of all the Christians you personally know well, how many of you can name even a handful who have never broken this particular commandment? It was a lot harder to commit adultery back when these stone tablets were hot off the chisel, because it only counts as adultery if the woman is married to some other man. It doesn't matter if the man is already married. If he is, then she just might become another one of his wives, because the Bible defines a marriage as one man and however many women that man can afford to keep in his house. You can still screw around.
Which is odd, because we don't find polygamy in our society, except for in the Mormons. But for most part, that's died off. See, what Mr. Ra is saying to the non-believer, anybody with no faith, they don't, subscribe, they're going to hear his particular words, and they're going to associate Christianity, Islam, any religion, any spirituality with mental illness, with the ability to not be honest with oneself. Whether or not you're sincere in your belief, that's irrelevant, my friend, because he states the definition of what's proof. He states the definition of what's real, because according to his guidelines for proof, there is no evidence of God's existence. Even ourselves, even the planet that we're dwelling on, the universe we can observe at night, this is not proof enough that God exists, and all this happened by purpose and not just by random chance. I want not to try to convert you. If you are what you are, you are what you are. I respect that. I'm just asking people to band together before it really becomes an issue. That if you have any type of faith, you have any type of belief, you're going to be alienated and truly persecuted. Because he knows good and well you can never stop someone from believing. So all this fanfare is for what? It's to gather power with people of his yoke. Let's continue.
Who aren't your wives, and that wouldn't be adultery either, because a man can also have concubines. It's not adultery unless they move in with you. And they have to move in with you for it to not be adultery, because you have to be in your household. A concubine is a sort of a sexual servant who serves no other purpose and has no legal claim to your assets. Your wives don't get full claim to your estate either, because according to one of God's hundreds of other commandments found throughout the Tanakh, and that's what the Jews refer to the Bible when it doesn't have the works of Christian revision in it, your wife, when you die, may become your brother's sexual property. Now, according to the Bible, both Old and New Testaments, women don't have nearly the rights that men do. This is another one of those Judeo-Christian principles that America...
Now, what he's going to basically do now, he's going to tie, as he put it, these barbaric Stone Age concepts with how evolved and how sophisticated the modern world is. Now, you're not going to get no argument from me that we are in a technological advanced part of reality. All right. Heck, look at the tools I'm using to make the show. But just because I have new trinkets or baubles does not mean or does not detract from the power of spirituality, from the power of the source, which is the Most High.
America was founded upon, but which we abandoned when we realized how pig ignorant that is. So a man can have multiple wives and a collection of personal harlots, but he can also have sex with his slaves. And that's not cheating either. You've heard of friends with benefits. You can call this your property rights. Now, some people would equate that to rape, but the Bible doesn't say that, because the Bible considers rape to be a prelude to matrimony.
Now, I cannot allow him to slide with that very harsh, insensitive, and venomous-filled statement. The Bible uses rape as a prelude to matrimony. That is his words, not mine. I'm sure you can find examples of anything if you're coming with that type of angle to the situation. He's not going to expound on. I'm not going to detract what he says in that way, and like, oh, he's just an idiot, he's just a dork, blah blah. No. I give a shit what this man looks like, what the vibe he tries to. It's all about his words, and if you get into an argument with an individual like him, I suggest you walk away if you're spiritual, because he's only on one mission. It's the proverbial crab in the bucket. He sees you rising up out of the bucket with your spirituality, and he's going to use his pinchers or claws to try to snag you by the leg, snag you by the arm, and drag you back down into his science abyss.
If you're a Bronze Age Israelite and you see some young cutie walking unescorted, if you want her, you can have her, even if she doesn't want you. Now, if she's married, then it's a death sentence for both of you. Because the Bible is stupid like that. But if she's not promised to someone else, then if you rape her and you get caught, you have to pay her father 50 shekels of silver. And she's yours. He may not want her back after that, even his own beloved child. Because an unmarried woman who was not a virgin was considered damaged goods back then.
And I hate to say it, from a lot of people's point of view, a married woman who's not a virgin is damaged goods even today. I don't really mean to hate to say that. Actually, that's pretty much a good thing to say. Shows that people have morality and values. If one man uses it, baits it up, sends it on down the line, another man uses it, beats it up, sends it on down the line, the other man uses it, beats it up, sends it on down the line, and then it's supposed to come to you, Mr. Raw, and you're just going to sop that up with your leavened bread and your biscuit? I don't think so. Let's continue.
So they had this policy that if you pop it, you buy it. God's truth. So your victim becomes your bride, and you're stuck together forever and can never get divorced. This isn't true of all your other wives, just the ones you forcibly violated against their pleas before taking ownership of them and making them your prisoner. So be careful who you rape. On the other hand, if you're a complete loser and you can't find a woman who appeals to you, just rape whatever girl you like, and she's yours forever. There's nothing she can do about it. And if she ever cheats on you, you can take her to the priest, and he'll force her to have an abortion.
Before we go down the line farther, he just said after you take advantage of this poor girl. That she's yours forever. But in a few seconds here, he's going to say that no, she can't be released if she's beaten or malnourished, basically. So even in his own speech here, things are changing as it suits to take jabs at spirituality.
That's in the book of Numbers, chapter 5. These are the laws of a just and righteous, infinitely wise and infallible God of supreme moral goodness. These are the laws America was based on, right? Except that it's getting to the point where a woman can't get an abortion even if she's raped. And you can't buy women anymore. Most states won't even let you rent one. Polygamy is a crime. Rape is a felony. But divorce is perfectly legal, despite what Jesus had to say about it. See how far we've fallen away from God's laws? Thou shalt not kill. This is very often the only commandment anyone can remember, and they think that this is proof that God is just and loving. They may even think that America was...
Now, I will agree with him on this point. Everything he's talking about, you have to keep in perspective. It's basically only written for the ancient Hebrew Israelite, for the so-called Jew. That's all this is really pertaining to. It's not pertaining to Nubians, Aboriginals, or even northern people. So on that, I will agree with him on.
The American law was based on the Ten Commandments specifically because killing is illegal, unless you're the governor of this particular state, because there's always an exception. Of course, Texas could be based on biblical principles because this state has killed hundreds more prisoners than any other. It's funny that God says, thou shalt not kill, but that same God also tells his followers to kill everyone else for any reason at all. Quick quiz. What's the penalty for being gay? What's the penalty for ordering shrimp scampi or lobster thermidor? What's the penalty for wearing cotton polyester brinds? What's the penalty for a child who says, but I don't want to clean my room? And what is the penalty for practicing freedom of religion on which this country was based? Yeah, the Bible says, love thy neighbor to death. Actually, when it says, love thy neighbor as yourself, it really means love your fellow Jew as yourself. I'm not even kidding about death. Actually, when it says, love thy neighbor as yourself, it really means love your fellow Jew as yourself. I'm not even kidding about that. That's a common mistranslation. The Jews were God's chosen people, after all. And what did he tell them to do? To every other tribe they ever come across. Kill them all, even the children. Let none survive. Strike them down with furious anger. Yeah, the Bible says, love thy neighbor to death. Actually, when it says, love thy neighbor as yourself, it...
And this is how we end up with the world we have now. See, he's mixing truths and half-truths and comedy all in one pan and serving it up to these people. Thank you once again, confidential informant, for sending me these clips. I never heard of this guy before. I am not going to lie. I heard of Amazing Randy. I heard of Penn and Teller. But I have not heard of this particular guy. Not saying that he's worse or better than the ones I've heard on. But he's definitely taken his atheistic message to the streets in a very hard way. He's using the same technique that we find other street preachers using, where they define the criteria very rapidly, and then they only plug in points that goes towards validating what they're saying. And they're making it seem as if it's not them, but of course it is them. Let's continue.
It really means love your fellow Jew as yourself. I'm not even kidding about that. That's a common mistranslation. The Jews were God's chosen people, after all. And what did he tell them to do? To every other tribe they ever come across. Kill them all, even the children. Let none survive. Strike them down with furious anger, and you will know that I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you.
Yeah, I hear that woman in the crowd cackling. Brother Leonard, welcome to the show. He looks like he smells like a tater tot coffee as Satanist. Because, Brother Leonard, you gotta understand, man. He is a Satanist. Now, he's not gonna say that he's a Satanist, obviously, because he knows once he exposes that aspect to him. Now, I'm not saying that he's an active Satanist. He might have just joined the Satanist movement and then moved on. But he's definitely been touched by them. And he's definitely supported of them. Now, a lot of people are going to be shocked at what he has to say when he starts talking about laws pertaining to killing your first baby and all this craziness. But he's doing this for a reason. It's plain as day. I grew up with white boys like him. Exactly. Now he's gonna only talk about black folks when it's taking a jab at like Christians owning slaves or something of that nature. But for the most part, we don't exist. It's about Thor, Odin, Loki with this guy. For real. Just like it is with Alex Jones and the rest of this yoke.
Yeah, God is love, if by love you mean evil. Honor thy father and thy mother. And this is another one of the nice ones, right? Unless you compare...
I just want to say this, that I let him talk, because I don't want to be guilty of like, oh, you're breaking down his thought true power. He can't get a thought out. No, I'm not doing that. But I want you to know, when he said that bit about God is evil, that's the paradigm shift. He's losing power. Collectively, he's losing power. And it's scaring the hell out of them, brothers. What's up, Marty? Welcome to the show, brother. Peace. He's getting scared. Let's continue.
Compare it to the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus says, do not think that I have come to bring peace on the earth. I come not to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be the members of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. He who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And if you think that's out of context or uncharacteristic of the man Jesus, check out the Gospel of Luke 14:26. Whoever comes to me and does not hate his father and his...
And let's do check out Luke. What did he say, 14:6 or something? Hold on. Where am I at? Let me go right.
Whoever comes to me and does peace on the earth, I come not to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be the members of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. He who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And if you think that's out of context or uncharacteristic of the man Jesus, check out the Gospel of Luke 14:26.
Book of Luke 14:26. Let's check it out. Let's do more than just sit here and blah, blah, blah. All right? What does Jesus mean? No, let's just look at it. and we will determine what it means for ourselves. Okay? Hopefully you guys can see that on the TV screen. It looks to be right. If any man comes to me and hates not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sister and ye and his own life, also he cannot be my disciple. Or maybe that's why he only has a handful of disciples. It's right there in plain sight. Does this detract from spirituality? Does this detract from God? Absolutely not. Let's continue. But I just wanted to show that I can't believe you've never seen this video before. This was part of their satanic push about 5 years ago. Made the lukewarm and the faith fall out of truth by joining the HOK nonsense. House of Consciousness. Oh, wow. I just don't get how a person's faith could be so weak, so plastic-like, that all I gotta do is say a couple words to you, Leonard, and everything you believe to be true, everything you know to be true, you're just gonna forsake it. I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, you're supposed to know it. It's supposed to be written on your heart. I don't understand.
Whoever comes to me and does not hate his father and his mother and his brothers and his sisters and his wife and his children and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. I think it's funny that so many...
Yes, hold on. This is I want to clear the air. I want to clear the air. Hold on. Let me use this too. The 4 magic words. Tamu Jama, Asman Tuk, Salam Alalam, Izil Salak. All right. Now let's continue with him.
Many Christian organizations describe themselves as being family-oriented when it's so obvious that Jesus was clearly not. Of course, 1 John 3:15 says, anyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. Revelations 21:8 says, but for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and immoral persons and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars. Remember that, Ray Comfort. Their part will be in the fire, in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So Jesus says to love the Jews, love other Jews as yourself. But he also says you're supposed to hate yourself and your brother. And anybody who hates his brother is a murderer who's going to die in the lake of fire. And you have to pick up your cross to follow Jesus, and you will not get eternal life regardless what Jesus said elsewhere. So if it seems that this is another one of those hundreds of nonsensical contradictions found throughout the Bible, just remember what your pastors told you. The Bible doesn't contradict itself. So this is not a contradiction. This is not a contradiction. Getting back to the topic, we haven't read the whole commandment. It goes on to say, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And now let's forget for a moment that according to this story, and it is just a story, even rabbinical scholars now admit that the Exodus was not an actual historic event.
Now, if rabbinical scholars actually is doing what he's suggesting here, then why are they still practicing Passover? Why did last month they had the Passover festival?
Let's forget that God promised to his chosen people land that already belonged to someone else. Both the Jewish and Christian versions of God are apparently ethnocentric racists. Jesus himself was Jewish, and he denied his lessons and his blessings to those of other races who he criticized, comparing them to dogs. Much the same with his alleged father, Jehovah, who sent an angel into the promised land to drive out a half a dozen tribes who already lived there in favor of his chosen people. This commandment could be read as, honor your father and thy mother, so that you will live a long life. Because remember, this was a culture that permitted parents to murder disobedient children. So you'd better show some respect, because it was legal for fathers to say, I brought you into this world, I'll take you out, make another one look just like you. Remember the Sabbath.
Remember the comedy. You will be laughed and mesmerized out of your faith, out of your belief, with comedy. The way he's putting all this together, y'all, if you're not strong in your spirit and you're not strong in your personal faith, you better never challenge that guy, because he will twist you up. You know it, Brother Leonard. You know it. That's exactly what he is. That's why he hates the word so much, because he understands that he is an abomination by virtue of his behavior and sexual practices. Now, he has a wife who could be a transsexual or something like that. Who knows? Or they could have an open situation. Who knows? A booty witch. Can you smell what he has cooking up in her cauldron? We have to understand the filth and degradation. There's more cats like him every day. People are listening to this and they're absorbing it and internalizing it. And I'm telling you, first they come for the Christian, then they come for the Muslim, then they come for whoever else. And we are fast approaching the time, brothers and sisters, when they can implant a chip in your mind and see what you're potentially thinking. So let's continue.
Day, to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and the earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and hallowed it. For the sake of time, I will skip all of the arguments pertaining to the bewildering inanity of the 6-day creation and focus only on the Sabbath. When is it? Most Americans forget, and the evening and the morning was the seventh day. Did you have a question? Okay. And the evening and the morning was the seventh day. And according to the original Jewish tradition, that was Friday evening to Saturday night. But whether it is Saturday or Sunday, according to the Judeo-Christian principles detailed in the book of Numbers, what is the penalty for working on weekends? Death. Same penalty for damn near everything. Is that a capital felony today? No. Not only does America have no legal prohibitions against working on weekends, not even Jesus.
Welcome to the show, Lindell 86. Shalom. My boy's daughter was falling for the Sabrina the Rich program, and she told me she wanted to be a witch. I told, so you want to eat poop and rape children? She looked at me like, Uncle Lenny, what? Because, listen, when it comes to witchcraft, the occult, things of that nature, blood will be shed. Not have to be, not maybe, no, it will be, because that's what's required of you when you go down that path. Oh, you think you're going to get some power to be a good witch? Please. Even a good witch is only good to deceive those into joining that ideology. No, we don't do that. No, we make cookies and cakes. But then they don't see her in the S&M outfit 2 days to a full moon, howling outside like an animal, cutting up chickens or cutting up kids or cutting up whatever. Can you please explain what a witch and warlock is just tuned in? Well, we just kind of got on that topic, but really, the simplest explanation, and this is really simple. A witch or a warlock is someone who worships nature. They that's what they ultimately are. They're nature worshipers. All right, and using the concept of you got to take something to make something. In other words, like when we look at ritual sacrifice. All right, let's say that you're a musician or a actor, and you're not having the best of go at landing that lead role or getting that hit zone. So what you would do is go to an enclave or a covenant. You'll kill some poor soul, and then all suddenly those doors will be open for you. Next time you go down to the big head office there, you get to go all the way up to the top floor. The next time you go down there to the bank, you get past all the gatekeepers, and you go right into the vault and get the money you need because you're in the in clique. Or, if you believe in magic, you harm things, you take its life, you essentially claim a part of its essence, and you can manufacture or manifest that in your own doings. In other words, you're taking energy from all these different entities. You're basically taking it into yourself, using it, and projecting it back out. But yeah, that's what witches and warlocks do. The real ones. All right, let's continue.
Obeyed this particular commandment. He said he came to fulfill the law, and he warned his followers that they had better keep every jot and tittle of all those other commandments laid down by Mosaic law, including all that nasty insanity in Leviticus. And he said that if you break any of those commandments, you will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But he said that his followers could freely ignore the fourth commandment. Consequently, all the other commandments in this set, at least, are repeated multiple times each throughout the New Testament, but the fourth commandment is not repeated even once. Oh, and Jesus also said you didn't have to wash your hands before you eat. That was a mote of Hebrew wisdom he chose to ignore because he didn't believe in natural pathogens. And yet, today, federal regulations require employees to wash their hands, and for the long...
But that's because, Mr. Ra, the employees aren't eating. The employees are preparing the food. Now, many of you long-time listeners know about the story that I'm about ready to share with you. But I'm going to share it with the new listeners who have not heard this story. And it pertains to the proper preparing of food, the proper bringing the pieces together. Approximately 8 years ago, I was living in Southern California. At this particular time, I was what you would consider a successful marketing director of a media company. A lot of extra time when I was in town and a lot of money. Well, I went out with a lot of my friends, and these were a whole new group of friends. Okay, yeah, it is purple. New friends, not people I would normally associate it with back at home. Well, we went down into San Diego, into the Balboa Park area. There was a little sandwich store. It was like a convenience store, but they made sandwiches in there as well. Well, me and the group went in there, and I saw the obvious homosexual preparing the food. Now, because I have certain beliefs or certain attitudes, I elected not to eat at this particular restaurant, or not restaurant, but establishment. Now he was putting those bean sprouts on, wasn't using no gloves, and making their little sandwiches. Cut that shit up, put it in the bags, and we went on to the park. We had a great time. I was drinking a lot of cerveza, and they ate their sandwich. Well, later on that night, they all got sick. I did not get sick. They got sick. And you cannot tell me it wasn't because of the filth that was potentially. Yeah. Oh. The potential filth that was on this man's hand. What if that guy, just got finished doing a couple things with his boyfriend and just, okay, let me make some sandwiches, and all that fecal material that was on his hands got on that bread, got on that meat, got on them bean sprouts, and these fools consumed it. You see, that's why you got to put those damn gloves on, servants, because that homosexual at that particular time was a servant. He was serving up food, quite literally. But see, Amun Ra here tries to distort it. And I just wanted to point that out so you guys see what he's doing. Let's continue.
Longest time, you couldn't buy alcohol on a Sunday in Texas because Christians thought that was the Sabbath. They don't listen to their Christ, do they? Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who taketh his name in vain. Jesus Christ, what can I say about all the goddamn blasphemers that broke that commandment? Did I just break it? I mean, I could have said everything I just said as a prayer, and all these words would have been.
No, that would not. My God, just talk about the level of mental gymnastic one must achieve. If you believe that God is not real, I do. That you're right. I know I don't hate these people. They're truly brainwashed. And then, Alexander, I'm going to get to your comment. I want to make this one statement. But welcome to the show, sister. If you don't believe in God, I get it. But then why do you have to go so hard in on bashing people who aren't even trying to convert you at this point? They're just trying to live their lives, love their people, and go on with their business. He's like a wolfhound that got scent of blood. And that's people with little faith. They're bleeding out. And he's running them down. He's running them down. And he's pouncing on them with these words. All right. Now, Alexander, did you see the video of the cop shooting a pregnant black woman? It blew up for one day, then disappeared. No, I did not see that, sister. But it doesn't surprise me. Listen, one thing that Amun Ra won't talk about is the racism. Oh, he'll mention it, but he ain't gonna go in because it don't affect him. In one of his deals that I saw, it was a clip person sent to me. He said in his car, he drives down the street with a two bumper stickers. One that's something like creation exists, and the other one, he is atheist or something. Atheism explains mythicism or whatever. And he says that he doesn't get hardly any shit when he drives down the road. But his wife gets all kinds of crazy looks and attention when she drives his car. He's not even putting two and two together. His wife is half Asian and half so-called white. So she's getting it for a couple different reasons. Not just because of the atheist, whatever. But because of the fact that some people might not like her so-called race. Now, when we're dealing with people and their perception of reality, you got to understand, if he was growing up and he was in any way, shape, or form gay, no wonder he has hatred towards the Bible, towards religion. Because most religions, I don't care who you are, most religions don't subscribe to the funny stuff. And if you're into the funny stuff, you're not going to be cool with people saying, hey, you're wrong. Brother David, you're wrong for thinking outside the box. Brother Leonard, you're wrong for being a righteous brother. Sister Alexandria, you're wrong for being a kind, caring, empathetic human being. Brother Lyndall, You're wrong for seeking the truth. Brother Kevin, how dare you want power? You see, this is what these people are trying to put in you, saying that you're wrong being who you are. And I'm saying they're wrong for trying to change you. I'm saying you, David. You know you, Leonard. You know you, Alexandra. You know yourself, Lyndall. You know yourself, Brother King. You know what you're about and what you're not about. Now, I don't want to be accused once again of trying to not allow this guy to talk. But I got to break shit down when the points are coming, because if we don't, he's moving so fast. Many people won't be drawing off of it, and they'll just let the overall bullshit kind of settle on them. That's why I chopped this shit up. Let's continue.
Literally applicable. Does America have any legal prohibitions against this? Did we ever? I mean, broadcasters can say this on public airwaves. Yet the Bible would have us to believe that saying Jesus is worse than saying any other shit. What about the founding fathers? They spoke very irreverently. They didn't have any particular concern or consideration or reverence for the names of God or Jesus. And they spoke of Christianity in very derogative terms. But the founding fathers never said fuck, did they?
And they never did say, black man and woman, y'all are humans. We don't want to enslave you. We don't want to rape you. We don't want to slit your throat and cut your belly open and take babies out and put them on pikes. We don't want to, take little babies, throw them in cages or put them on a hook for alligator bait. And I agree with them. All those slave masters were not religious, nor spiritual, nor conscious. They were savages, beasts, with physical power and unity, because they were unified, but unified for the wrong purpose and the wrong cause. He don't want to acknowledge that. He don't want to acknowledge. He wants to predicate that all the so-called founding fathers of the United States were atheists, and I give him that. Yes, absolutely. Just like most of your super ministers, big time religious leaders, they're not spiritual in it. They're faking a funk, and they're getting over so they can get the talismans or the shekels or the dollars or the rubies or the quid or the pound or the franc or the Deutschmark or the Bitcoin. I tell you all straight up, I do appreciate, to bow my heart, those who have donated to Patreon, who have hit me up on the super chat. But all these shows I've been bringing you, you don't hear me talking about send in money, brothers and sisters, and you'll get blessed and this and that. Because I understand that you guys need money for your personal freedom. Because that's what society we live in, and I'll be damned if I'm going to take your personal freedom away from you if you can't afford it. Now, if you can afford it, yes, I'm cool. Thank you. But if you cannot afford it, you need to get what you need to get. Keep your fucking money. Don't give it to me and don't give it to no one else. Except for the person you're trading with for whatever product or good you're getting. I don't want to see you guys impoverished no more than you already are. I do wish there was some way we could collectively pool our money to a certain degree. And even at the hub, when we get to hub, you will still have your personal money. There's not going to be no tithes. There's not going to be no monthly donation. Because the hub is going to be self-sufficient. In fact, many people may be getting money from the hub. Sorry, y'all. It's just that I see where we're going at with Mr. Aaron Ra and his yoke. I see the end game on this. And I see brothers and sisters now who basically worship in the way that they want to worship in peace. That peace being shattered. You guys will get chips. You will get the computer chip placed in your hand, or you will not buy or sell nothing. So funny how Stone Age people could write that down. And we're fast heading to that reality. Let's continue.
It's not just about the Judeo-Christian God either. In a later commandment, you are forbidden to say the name of any other God for any reason at all. If you're not afraid of the power of the words and casually repeat mystic incantations without trepidation and noticeably without effect, then you sort of nullify the expected magic, and that's what this is really all about. Religion is all about the power of pretend. It is literally make-believe. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth.
Brother Leonard, exactly. His founding fathers were worshiping Odin, hence the hanging us from trees, so the soul can't ascend to heaven. Oops, just took the sheets off these MFers. You know it. See, he knows what he's doing. And from those of you who are not strong in the faith or not understanding of the battle, because this is a battle, y'all. I'm literally showing you the machine gun pillbox shooting spiritual bullets at you. Of course, he's going to say they're not spiritual. These are facts. These are scientific observation confirmed by a third party, blah, blah, blah. But in essence, they are spiritual bullets, and they are gunning down people. And then the sad thing about it, they got people supposedly on our side, but really they're one of them. They can recite the verses, but they cannot bring forth the feeling. They cannot bring forth the spirit. If I sit here for 1 hour and talk to you and you don't feel anything, it doesn't resonate in your body, in your mind, and in your heart and want to energize you, then stop listening to me. Because I am ineffective. I want to transfer this energy into you. I want us to unite and build something greater than ourselves. Not a cell. I'm not trying to build a fortress of isolation. No. But a fortress of inspiration. I don't know about you guys. I'm not getting injected with no damn chip. I'm not going to flip-flop. I'll just as soon just starve out and go on a piece on out. I am not going to become one of their chattel slaves on a electronic plantation. It's not going to happen. And on that note, I guess it is true. Slavery is a choice. Because this electronical slavery coming up will be a choice. Not a great one that most rational people could even contemplate. When they say either take the chip or die, they'll just take the chip. I am a human being. I am a child of the divine, just as you are, my brothers and sisters. And I'm not going to be treated like a piece of freaking cattle with a hook in my nose and a tag in my ear, being led to the slaughterhouse to become steaks, hamburger, and potted meat. No. I reject that. Let's continue.
Second clause. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers unto the children of the third and fourth generations of them that hate me, and showing mercy to the thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. This is the stick and the carrot again. Believe our ridiculous nonsense, or else.
You know, Brother Leonard, you're bringing the fire yourself today. And on the flip side, technically, he's using a perversion of our own ancestors' magic against us. That's exactly what he's doing. And he always kind of shores it about, I don't believe in nothing. I don't believe, but that's a lie, ain't it? Because he believes in science. He believes in evolution, which I just showed you like 3 videos ago. That is preposterous. Where did the rocks and the dust come from? Where did gravity come from that start coalescing all of them into the planets and suns and solar systems and galaxies anyhow? And where did all this matter come from once again? It just popped up out of thin air, did it? See, when we start asking really simple questions, he's going to revert to, oh, I don't know, but the best to pump evidence, it shows it's like this. And at the end of the day, Brother Leonard, if you're melanated and you don't look like this gentleman, in his theory, in his natural world explanations, he is literally more advanced than you are. Because we already know his yoke didn't even pop up on this planet until about 5,000 years ago. This out of nowhere. So, let's continue. And please, I want you guys, hopefully you guys are drawing off of this the right conclusions. I'm not saying attack these people. I'm not saying berate these people or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying unite with other spiritual people before it's too late. Be like the witches are and the warlocks, form your own little underground covenants. Your underground churches, your underground temples. Dad, a little broken. Okay, I'll fix it here in a minute, baby. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Because I'm telling you, as more and more the unwashed, uncleansed masses heeds this man's words, not him personally, please don't think it's him personally. These words are coming from another. And I know where he's getting his words from. James Randi is behind this man. Now, James Randi is old and basically out the game. But when he was younger and definitely in the game, the speech you hear this man's given would have been a speech that you would have heard James Randi say away from the TV cameras. Now let's continue.
That's the law of Abrahamic religion. If you're Jewish, you would interpret this to mean that you're supposed to obey all 10 commandments, including the 4th one. Most Americans would interpret this to mean that you're not supposed to worship false gods. But how can you tell which ones are the false ones? Everyone who has a belief...
Once again, you can tell by the Spirit. If you don't know what you're about on the inside, then you won't be able to tell anything from anything anyways. The righteousness shall reclude the wicked. This written is the joy. I'm just saying that we all know that there's going to be a great falling away from spirituality. We all should be aware of this by now. This is the reason why we're going to have such a falling away. Now, don't get me going on to who wrote the Bible and why. And then later on, you can see why some of these written in things are so easily dispelled because it's all gag to begin with. See, if you're going to believe by faith, then you don't need a book. You don't need any manuscript. You don't need any temple. You don't really need anything other than what's written in your heart and the knowledge of the Most High. Now people are going to be, oh, that's incredibly ignorant, true power. Oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you, the same God that spoke to the very first human is the same God that can speak to you now. He will be the same God that will speak to your ancestors if humanity is allowed to continue. You cannot, and you will not, defeat the faithful. You cannot, and you will not, pervert, convert, or revert the faithful. See, what people like Mr. Rob fail to recognize is the power of true spirituality, the power of true blessings, and the power of the true Most High God. I played this because a lot of our younger brothers and sisters are in schools right now as we speak, being taught this evolutionary message, being taught that there is nothing righteous nor respectable in religion or religious texts, which I have to disagree. But that is just me disagreeing. I don't control the schools. I can't force them to put any particular curriculum in there. But when I say this, I hope it hits you right. What good is it for a human being to know all the scientific knowledge that one could possibly absorb, but yet have no knowledge of self and no knowledge of the Most High? How does that human being, how does that organism profits? And there's only one way it can. And that's only if it's linked in a society with other like-minded drones, and they're all doing their little works, and they pray that they're not met with some sort of calamity, because they will not be able to survive, because they're interdependent on each other. There are thousands of words that don't even translate to English from the Pueblo Hebrew, thus the interjection, they're bullshit into the Bible when he says not to change one word. Exactly. That'd be like me breaking down Brother Leonard's sentence there, and I'm like, I change it up. There are two words that don't translate into, and then what if I just say Chinese, from their respective, let's just say Spanish. Thus, we interject our truth into the holy book, and we say, don't change it now. What Brother Leonard is alluding to, and this is so powerful and so true, and thank you for sharing this thought with us, brother, that if your faith is truly based only upon a manuscript that's not even in its original form, I think you got some soul searching you need to do, brother or sister. I think you truly got some. Oh, did you? Well, very good. I hope that you soul search and you see it's not a book or a manuscript that saves you. It's your interpretation of yourself and your interpretation of what God wants for you. I'm going to say it like this, man. When you're dead and gone, you're going to have, and I'm not doing this to scare nobody, but you're going to have an eternal existence. Whether that existence is in pleasure, understanding and peace, or will it be in suffering, confusion, and war? It's entirely up to you and who you serve. Because you will serve someone, Brother Leonard. You will be serving someone, Brother David. You will be serving someone, Sister Alexandria. And everyone else in the chat room. Just because your master doesn't have foot on neck yet does not mean he's not out there. Now, a lot of people are, hopefully they'll get that. That's about as far as I can go with that. But let's continue. Valhalla sounds good to me. I don't want to go to Valhalla.
Belief in a God.
And Brother David, you're going to serve. And guess what, brother? You're going to wear some gloves too. It's federal law.
Thinks everyone else's pantheon as the false ones, right? But it doesn't tell you that you're not supposed to worship these renderings. It tells you you're not allowed to create them at all, regardless whether you intended to worship them or not. Thou shalt not make any engraving of any or any likeness in any medium of anything that is in heaven and earth. Now, presumably, they're only talking about recognizable things like animals or plants or trees or what have you. In which case, abstract art is permissible only by omission. And what this is saying is it is against God's law to draw a picture or paint or sculpt or create any likeness of anything, any living thing at least, if not other things like chariots and helmets and so on, perhaps even maps. That means that.
And you know what kills me about this? This guy, and a lot of these atheists say the same shit. If God exists, there's no such thing as freedom of will. Really? Have you never drawn a picture? That's free will in action. Every line, every shadow, that's all freely. I'm going to put it here unless you're doing a still life, something real. But if you're doing like anything like expressionism or surrealism, where it's coming just straight out of your mind, that's all freedom of choice where to put that at. We don't even think about the connotations of what these people are doing, man. And he has the ear of the Texas Board of Education. And for those who don't understand, because California no longer buys books, Texas is the biggest buyer of public education books out there. So therefore, if he can get them to buy certain books, the rest of the country buys it as well by default because of the publishers. So, oh my gosh, that's high IQ idiots, they are killing me as well, and they're killing you. It's called Bayer, aspirins, Roundup, Monsanto. Yeah, how's that for your damn IQ? Without a moral guide, they are nothing but devils with minds set upon death and destruction.
Any artistic rendering of any kind is forbidden. That is what it says, and it's obviously what it means, but virtually no one obeys this particular commandment. Only the most extreme, barking lunatics could, and I only ever met one who did.
See what I'm saying? He's calling you lunatics. Brother David, Brother Leonard, everyone else. If you're half-ass spiritual, full-blown spiritual, none coming back for spiritual, you're a fucking raving lunatic. That's what he's saying. It's all make-believe. You might as well be bound down to Mr. Riley or Mr. Rogers and Charlie. Oh, Charlie, deliver us to our destination as we change our shoes and sweaters. Come on, man, let's get real.
Otherwise, the only way to revere this is to interpret it to mean what it does not say, which is a common Christian tradition. In fact, the 11th commandment, given soon after these in the same chapter, says, "Thou shalt not make other gods besides me, neither of silver nor gold." Amusingly, there's an implied admission that man made God in his own image. But more than that, it also means that this commandment is not limited to gods. This prohibits any artistic depiction of anything at all. Now, why is that? Because gods are jealous. They don't want you to worship other gods, but they don't want you to become like gods yourselves. In the earliest legends, the gods created humanity out of clay figurines into which they breathed the breath of life. In the ancient Semitic traditions or the ancient Jewish magic, this is called a golem spell. God doesn't want you to create things that might become infused with a spirit and come alive. And need I point out that if the old Jewish God Jehovah actually existed and was the only God who ever existed, then it would not be possible for him to be.
And the only reason why he's saying that is because the guy doesn't strike his little monkey ass, self-professed monkey ass down. Because he believes that he is from a monkey. Hey, Sister CJ, welcome to the show. Glad you made it in. We're just talking, breaking down this guy's blaspheming ways and rhetoric. Because I'm telling you, he has us all in his gun hairs. You know, he has no problem about objectifying and almost damn near demonizing a spiritual person as being stupid and willfully ignorant to his facts and his reality.
Jealous of any other god. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Bearing in mind that a god is a magical anthropomorphic immortal, having miraculous powers and human attributes, but being able to survive the death of his own body, it is fair to say that nearly every Christian is in violation of this very first commandment. And Catholics very often fashion that other god out of silver or gold. I mentioned that people interpret the Bible to mean things it does not say. Take the concept of the Trinity, for example, which is nowhere in the Bible. It does not say that Jesus is an avatar of God. An avatar would be the human manifestation of God in the flesh, like the character Jehovah plays in World of Warcraft. But Jesus never describes himself that way. The gods of other religions, older religions, did do that, and Hinduism offers many examples, with Lord Krishna being foremost among them. But Jesus is never depicted as being the same entity as, nor an extension of, the old Jewish father god, also known as El, Allah, Abba, or Yahweh.
See, here he comes. Now, this part here that he's about ready to break down. This is where he's defecating on Christianity. Trowels all the way down to ankles, bent over, defecating. Just listen. He should be ashamed, but obviously he's not.
This is the name of the Jewish father god, known to Christians only as God the Father. Most people think it should be pronounced Yahweh, but I'm not sure that's correct. I think it should be pronounced Yes,
Leonard.
Yes. And that this is where the spelling is where we get the name Jehovah. I read Chris.
Before he goes down this road, I want to say this. This comes from Brother Leonard. We are the original creations, hence the hate. This is why the world hates the melanated man and woman and child. And this is why this man here, I believe, is another reason why he's on this power trip. Because remember one of the rules of power. If you cannot obtain it or possess it, despise it. If you cannot obtain it or possess it, you must despise it. He can't have melanization and he can't have spirituality, apparently. So he despises it.
Christian posts talking about how Jesus spoke to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. No,
it's not about Christianity per se, Brother David. It's about spirituality in general. Now, I can agree. If you worship something that isn't what you believe, like let's say that I worshiped the Kool-Aid Man, but I believe that the cherry what's the flavor of the Kool-Aid man. You know, and all my people, ever since the Kool-Aid man gave us his knowledge of self, we've been worshiping him. But we've been worshiping the cherry Kool-Aid man. Well, somewhere along the way, we get conquered by people who worship the grape Kool-Aid man. Almost everything's damn near the same, except for the Kool-Aid man is grape. Now, the Kool-Aid man will be coming back to kick in the door, you know, in the future. Which Kool-Aid man are we going to be looking for? The cherry one or the grape? And some will argue, does it really make a difference? And I would say yes. Let's continue.
The authors of the Tanakh, now known as the Old Testament, were not Christian. Judaism is a different religion. Jesus was not the God of Abraham. Moses didn't talk to Jesus. Moses talked to Jehovah, the same God Jesus prayed to. And bearing that in mind, it's funny when you compare the Old Testament to the New, because it seems that God and Jesus are arguing with each other about that. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. No one comes to the Father but through me. I am the Lord, and besides me there is no Savior. But from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power of God. I am Jehovah, and there is none else. Besides me there is no God. I will gird thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know for the rising of the sun and from the west, that there is none besides me. I am Jehovah, and there is none else. You have said so, but I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming in the kingdom of heaven. In the Old Testament, we had Jewish prophets pretending to speak for Jehovah. And in the New Testament, we have converted Christians pretending to speak for Jesus. But he, being full of the Holy Spirit, looked steadfastly into heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. There are some here who think I missed my calling. We read about the first 10 commandments in Exodus 20. If you haven't read it, you should, but don't stop there, because God doesn't stop at 10 commandments. He pauses only a moment and then continues on, giving dozens more commandments right through the next 3 chapters.
Why don't he say it like it is, 613 commandments? Why don't he just say that? You know, he's so versed in everything else. But see, that shit's not funny.
Some of these are better than the commandments you're familiar with, though that isn't saying much. And many of them are plagiarized from an earlier law code laid down by Hammurabi. So the laws allegedly laid down by Moses were copied from laws that were already delivered by another.
And look at that nappy beard of Hammurabi. Look at that beard. Those are naps. He don't have a beard that looks like that, and never will. You see, in some of the artwork, I think the real reason why they want to suppress that artwork, if you see some of the earliest depictions of people, they're all melanated. Just think what happens when believers come in for, 400 or 500 years, and they can take their chisels and go to work, start breaking up Fresno, starts busting down statues. This is what it's about. It's about taking away your power, taking away your lineage, taking away your heritage, taking away your rightful place at the damn table. Now let's check out Mr. Ra again.
Semitic ruler centuries earlier. Unlike Moses, Hammurabi was an actual historic figure, one of 3 real people, and possibly more, on which the questionable composite character of Moses was evidently based. Hammurabi's Stela of Law is also an actual historic artifact, a monumental slab of basalt currently on display at the Louvre, whereas Moses' Ark of the Covenant appears only to exist in stories, and the oldest of these stories was apparently adapted from the already ancient legends pertaining to these earlier characters. I can't list all the subsequent commandments given from Exodus 21, 22, 23, but these begin with God explaining how Hebrew slaves should be treated better than the slaves of other races, because Hebrew slaves can at least be released eventually, whereas the slaves of other races are in it for life. However, the Bible also describes how you can take the wives and children of these slaves and hold them captive, using that bond to brand even the Hebrew males and keep them forever. It says you can sell your daughter as a sex slave, and that she can never be released unless her master refuses to breed her.
Okay, so why would you make this statement, she can never be released, and then say, unless? How come he couldn't have said, it would appear that they would be enslaved until two criteria were met. One, she wasn't being made love to, and the second, she wasn't being fed. His mama's in it for life. You know it.
Or feed her. Only then can she be turned loose, penniless, to fend for herself in a world of pure barbarism. Christians like to say that Bronze Age biblical slavery wasn't like early American slavery and that it wasn't as bad either. Bullshit. If it wasn't already bad enough,
now how can he talk about slavery? Did you hear what he just said, y'all? The chattel slavery that we went through was no worse than the shit they went through back in ancient times. I don't know, was he there? Did he have any people that were there? Because like most disenfranchised people, anybody writing any books or articles about them typically are not in that group. Brother Leonard, he's the type to talk intellectual fuckery to lure you in. Then when you get behind closed doors, he'll pull out the gay Egyptian. He'll be like, shh, it's a secret.
the Bible goes on to explain how savagely you can beat your slaves and what should happen if your brutality knocks out their teeth or one of their eyes. How badly do you have to bludgeon someone to knock out one of their eyes?
And my God, this guy unleashed the booty, chakra ass nigga. This guy, he's so perverted in his distortion of the word. It's almost fascinating, baffling, and de-energizing at this point.
This is where you find the comment that if you cudgel or cane your slave to death, you will be punished on a charge similar to that of animal cruelty. But if he or she regains consciousness and survives the assault by at least a couple of days, then there is no punishment, for they are your property. The commandments contain no timeless wisdom. Everything is in the regional currency of sheep and shekels, and it is all ethnocentric. For example, one of the commandments says that Jews should not charge interest on loans to other Jews.
Which they still follow that today. But you and I, my brother and sisters, charge to the max.
All the defensible commandments are readily obvious. Like if you come across a carcass of something that was already dead before you found it, don't eat it. Duh. Every other ordinance is as wrong as it can be. Pagans must be put to death along with anyone who believes differently and anyone who curses their parents. But thieves, arsonists, and occasionally rapists need only pay a fine. Finally, after receiving 4 chapters worth of commandments, Exodus 24 says Moses came down from the mountain and recounted to the people all of the words of the Lord and all of the ordinances. That means that list did not stop at 10. We all know the story about how Moses brought the tablets down from the mountain and smashed them. He obviously had more than 10 at that time, and the Bible had not yet numbered them. not until he had to go back up the mountain to get the second edition. Now, the first set was reportedly written by God himself in his own hand. And God said he was going to write the second set too. But as we read on, we find out it was actually Moses who wrote it. See, nothing was ever written by God. Everything that was ever said to be God's word turned out to be written by men who were said to be moved by God, almost as if God was never really there. It's a funny thing about God. He can make dinosaurs and viruses and everything that humans can't make, but he can't make anything that humans can make. He can't make a box or a boat or a building. He can't write anything himself, and he never demonstrates that he has any more knowledge, wisdom.
So this guy, Brother Leonard, you obviously have known of this guy. I didn't even get this guy's info until, like a month and a half ago when I was going through my emails, which I do go through my emails, yeah. And I just, the person sent me links to his videos, and I was like, what the hell is this foolishness? So, yeah, this is sad. So that movie Warlock was a pretty blasphemous film, as most Hollywood productions are. And once again, yeah, I'm not saying this to say this is correct, that's correct. No. My whole point is showing you guys this is so that you understand when the rejection of spirituality in all of its forms comes down, you understand the root of it. It didn't happen by chance. Apparently, this guy's been weaving this web for a while now, and he's not alone. That's what I want you to know. He is not alone. Oftentimes, it may seem or feel as we are alone, but we are never alone either. Let's continue, and then we'll be wrapping this thing up.
More understanding than the simple people who have to do all of his work for him. So Moses goes back up the mountain, and God promises that they're going to write the commandments again. And God says that they're going to be the same words that were on the previous set, except this time they stopped at 10. Probably because it took Moses 40 days and 40 nights just to copy 10 commandments. It must be really hard to chisel Hebrew script into stone. So let's recount them. Thou shalt worship. Whoop. There we go.
Is that why he has like an Egyptian name? The things where the white claims they were. Yes, I bet you he is.
Thou shalt. Oh, I'm sorry. He's mad. Okay.
And you know what's sad? You can actually hear a baby crying during the majority of this video in the background. There's a little baby out there who's so spiritually in tune that knows that this is a really bad deal. And this baby's crying and they're all laughing and shit. This is show how wicked this is. Listen in the background, you can hear the baby crying. What's up, murder?
Thou shalt worship no other gods, for the Lord is a jealous God. Okay, so the first commandment is not worded exactly the same as it was in the first edition, but it means the same thing. Thou shalt, there we go. Thou shalt make thee no molten gods. So again, it's paraphrased, not exactly the same, but it's essentially the same. The feast of the unleavened bread shalt thou keep in the month when the ear is on the corn. Is this one different? You'd think that it's not from the first set, but it is. This long-standing Jewish tradition from Exodus 23:15 is part of the list of subsequent commandments most Christians never knew about. Remember, there were a lot more than 10 commandments in that first set. And God seems to hate yeast for some reason. Maybe it intimidates him to see bread rise. I don't know. Anyway, next up. All the firstborn are mine. Thank you for that enhancement. Now, this is an interesting one because this is one of the original commandments from Exodus 22:29 in which God demands that his followers perform human sacrifice. In fact, Leviticus 27 verses 28 and 29 and Numbers 3:13 make clear that God expects his followers to kill their firstborn male children on his altar, and the prophets interpreted it that same way too. But it gets better. 6 days shalt thou work, but on the 7th thou shalt rest. The 5th commandment of the 2nd edition was the 4th commandment in the 1st edition. This is the one that Jesus said that Christians didn't have to follow, but Jehovah said that the Jews had to follow under penalty of death. But there's no double standard here, and aren't you glad that God remains eternal and unchanging? Thou shalt observe the Feast of Weeks, even of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at year's end. This Jewish version of Thanksgiving is not in the first set. It gets repeated in Numbers 28 and Leviticus 23, but this is the first time it gets brought up. You have to remember that in Exodus, God is capable of changing his mind when Moses argues with him. And God is capable of showing remorse for the mistakes that he's made. So he's not infallible yet. So it's okay if this one commandment wasn't in the original set, even though God said they would be the very same words. The final 4 commandments were in the original set, though none of them were in the first 10. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, because you wouldn't want light, fluffy bread to soak up some poor slaughtered kid's blood that you're about to eat.
No, he's wrong. That, what he just said there, was only said in that particular way to make even the most conscious person cringe just a little. The image of people sopping up children's blood and consuming it isn't a very pleasant scene underneath anybody's particular dogmatic doctrine.
There we go. The fat of my feast shall not remain all night until morning. And here's a timeless classic repeated by parents everywhere. Clean up the table after your bloody, barbaric ritual. The first of the first fruits of the ground shalt thou bring into the house of the Lord thy God. Remember, this is a...
Hold on. I just want to get to, and I want you to hear how he concludes his shit. Listen to this.
that these are God's own words, since God can never speak for himself. I gave them statutes that were not good, and ordinances by which they could not live. I defiled them through their very gifts, in offering up all their firstborn, so that in order that I might horrify them, so that they might know that I am the Lord. With that, I hope I've made it abundantly clear that if you use the Bible as a moral guide, you will be a criminal in every country on this planet. We are all more moral than that, which is why this country was definitely not founded on any of the damn commandments.
But wait, hold on. I gotta, because everyone thinks that I'm just doing that this guy just is about.
This is the most important person.
Like I told you before, they come after Christians first, but he'll step up his game. Listen.
Believe it. That's the problem I have.
Hold on.
And the prophets are gathered together. We're talking about, the final day. So the prophets also are risen, harmful, and it influences people's lives negatively and badly. And I think it should be curtailed heavily.
Absolutely, yes.
Because it's not doing any good to anybody on the face of the planet.
They're talking about spirituality. I think in this one, they're talking about specifically Islam. That's what they just said. Islam has not done anything good to nobody on this planet, right? Obviously, they've never been in a shithole suffering. They've never been in places where a lot of us have to go. And I'm underneath the belief that if you use whatever you use and it's bringing you peace of mind and heart and you're not killing people, hurting other people, that's fine. But that's not how these guys see it, because everybody is a fanatic that is religious.
So,
Yeah, and it has been brought up before, you know, that this or that church or whatever, that there'll be some religious group that does some beneficial thing, usually as a PR stunt. And that's
so for those brothers and sisters been around since the 60s. I guess the civil rights in America was a PR stunt because it was absolutely at the top, populated by religious, sincere human beings that wanted a better situation. But he's just saying, it's just a PR stunt, y'all. Y'all still just got scumbags because y'all believe in the Most High.
that's it. That's all they've got is they like, well, they do this one bake sale, or they do this one thing where they like make soup for the homeless while preaching to anybody that has to eat while they're eating. They have to listen to being preached at, and that is like the most positive thing that this religious organization does. And then everything else they do is just overtly anti-humanitarian or corrupt or evil in some cases. So anyway. Getting back to today, we're talking about Surahs 101, 75, 104, and 77. And I know, Bogey, you have notes to go through on this, and I'm going to let you take it away. Go ahead.
Okay, well, unless Saeed, you want us to add something to it, I will start with my notes.
No problem. Go first.
Okay. So this is our Surah 101. And it brings the concept of the scales to the judgment day. It's an interesting concept that your deed, this was, I'm just throwing this out, that's a trivia. Like, he's got 99 names. I read about it. I'm not sure. It's not in my foreground for sure.
Something else. It says, we'll have the bottomless pit for his home.
Yep.
As far as I know.
Yep, that's
or his refugee will be an abyss, whatever that means. And he will have his home in Hawiyah, in hell.
Yeah, that translation is out to lunch. That translation is out to lunch. Anyways, that's funny. I figured I add it in there. It's just out of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, somebody calls somebody's mother off. And guess what? They're going to hell. But I guess you figured that out by now.
Yeah, it's about the only thing the Quran says.
Yep. Yeah. You're going to hell in so many ways. Okay, we can move to 75 if there are no extra notes,
please.
Said?
So there it is, Yao. He craps on Christianity. He defecates on Islam. I'm sure he tinkles on Hinduism. That sounds like that slave Bible. I've heard about that, CJ, sister. I'm going to have to check into that. Because once again, man, when these Edomites get with that pen, it truly is mightier than the sword, because they'll scramble up someone's brain and have you sitting there in poverty and oppression willingly because you don't believe that that's some part of some sort of religious atonement in many ways. And it's not. You are to live free and you are to be prosperous. Anything less is not only unethical, but it's uncivilized as well. And on that note, Yao, this has been TPIM SR Live. As always, I hope that I've given you something to think about, maybe meditate upon today, and maybe on your journeys in life today, you are going to begin to see some of the beginnings of the atheist takeover of not only this country, but the world. And the atheism and homosexual agenda goes hand in hand. You cannot believe in God or it almost seems like you cannot not believe in God without not knowing what to have sex with at the same time. So on that note, y'all, live your life with integrity, without hate, envy, or greed. And as always, let's try to be kinder to each other. Peace.